Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Compelling Conversations podcast. Today, I'm very thrilled to be joined by my friend Nour. Nour, thanks so much for being here, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy too, man. This is a long time coming.
Right.
And I wanted to begin by sharing this poem that I was introduced to recently, a few days ago. It's a poem that Salim the Grim sent to Shah Ismail as a message. And it's just been in my mind for a number of days now. I just can't stop thinking about it. It's pretty deep. So I'm going to read the Ottoman Turkish and then I'll explain the gist of it.
Mhm.
He says, Sanma Şahım, herkesi sen sadıkane yar olur. Herkesi sen dost mu sandın? Belki ol, ayar olur. Sadıkane belki ol, bu alemde dildar olur. Yar olur, ayar olur. Dildar olur, serdar olur. And long story short, what he's saying to this enemy is don't think that your best friend can't be your greatest enemy. And that greatest enemy can't be really powerful. And that powerful person is super powerful, almost like the master of the world kind of a thing. So basically, he's saying to Shah Ismail, like, hey, don't mess with me like that. I might be a little nice to you here, but like, I'm capable of X, Y, and Z. And the reason that it's been on my mind so much is because I've just been thinking about friendships like that, where someone can be such a close friend to you once upon a time, but then it just, that friendship almost dies, and it's like, wow, I can't believe that we're so far apart now, kind of a thing. And there's plenty more to be said, but that's one thing I wanted to start off with. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, it's a wonderful topic. And I think it's true. Like, as we progress through life, we friendships form and friendships kind of fall apart, right? Like for any number of reasons. Like, moving away, you just kind of have like put like some physical distance between you and other people. And then also like, for example, circumstances change and you just kind of fall apart, or even like you have like a disagreement with somebody and then it can be so bad that it like fractures the friendship. And it's definitely a big thing. Yeah, I think that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah.
Mhm. But I will say I think friendships can be built on a lot of things, right? Like you can have people who are friends just because they see each other on their commute to work or to school, or you can have friends like for example like like somebody that you hang out with regularly that you maybe have known for a long time, and then you have like friends who you're friends with for a different purpose. Like for example, like as Muslims we have that level of brotherhood with each other, right? So like even if we might disagree with each other, we have that like our friendship is built on Islam. And so that's a friendship that, to me at least, seems a lot stronger and less likely to fracture. That's in my experience. That's what it's kind of been like. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a good point that you mentioned there. Uh, yeah, as I mentioned, there's a lot to be said, and I'm trying to think, what do I say exactly?
Yeah.
But I guess I would take it back to the poem. They weren't necessarily friends, as far as I know, Yabu Sultan Selim and Shah Ismail.
I get you.
But again, that poem, the reason I just think about it so much is because it's like, I think I've kind of had that experience where you could have such a close friend, but then they become your greatest enemy in a way. And it's like, wow. And I just think about that a lot. Like, wow, that, like, it's a possibility on Earth. Like, that thing can happen. The closest person to you can become, like, the furthest away from you. And just that phenomenon is wild to me that that's possible. It's possible that that can happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also like this thing where maybe the friendships don't die necessarily, but they're also not alive. They're just kind of
Hmm.
like in a in between limbo.
I
It's like,
get
oh
you.
yeah, I know that person vaguely. Once upon a time, I knew him better, but now I know him vaguely.
Right.
Yeah. But I did want to say, thinking of Yabu Sultan Selim. I don't know how much you know of him, but when I think of him, I often think of courage or bravery. And something that a joke that you have that I love is we're like walking, we see some squirrels, and um,
I remember this.
yeah, they have a pretty big pair on them. And you said maybe that's why they're so brave.
Yeah,
Do you want to
yeah.
expand on that? The bravery of
Yeah.
squirrels.
I mean, I think it's unique to the UH scrolls, right? I think they're so used to being around people that, they have the, like, if you go to like a park, for example, and you even look at a squirrel, they'll run away. But like the UH scrolls, they know like a lot of students will feed them, right? And so they have like kind of the pair, the courage to approach them and like see if they can get food. And so, I mean, there might be something to be said about that, right? Like, circumstances can change who you are. Like, for example, if there's something to be gained by taking action, then you take action. Like with the squirrels, right? Like they might not want to interact with people, but if it gets them food, then they'll do it and they'll make that step. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Mhm.
Yeah, squirrels are cool.
Squirrels are cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there something on your mind that you've been thinking about lately?
Interesting that you mentioned friends at the beginning because I was thinking about that a while. Just like the role that friends play in our lives. Because on Friday, on UH, like during the Jummah khutbah, the topic was about friends and how they can shape who you are, right? And so the Khatib, he mentioned this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he said, "Ar-rajulu ala dini khalilih." The man is on the religion of his friends, or the religion of his close friends. And so it's so like you don't even realize like the impact that the people that you keep around you have on it, right? Like just like the influences that they have on your life. And also like stressing the importance of keeping good friends around you, right? So people that'll actually like uplift you and keep you on the right path, right? Like you, for example, alhamdulillah, you're a wonderful friend, and
I would
I
hope, man. Thank you. Thank you. And you as well. Yeah, alhamdulillah,
but
yeah.
yeah, there's a lot to be said about that, about like the role that friends play in our lives.
Yeah, certainly is. Do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, sure. I think in my experience, like before I came to UH, like I grew up in more like a very Western kind of upbringing, like I had like a lot of like friends from all different kinds of backgrounds and stuff, and I wasn't I wouldn't say they weren't bad friends, like they were good friends, but in terms of like compared to what I found when I came to UH, for example, like when I came to the MSA and I found all the brothers and stuff like that, I think that was like the most profound kind of shift that I experienced in my life was joining the MSA community here at UH and just seeing how kind of everybody interacted and the level of like the level of friendship that everybody was on, the level of brotherhood that everybody is connected with. And I think that's a lot of the like the that's the, one of the main reasons why I kind of started getting more serious about the deen and trying to be a better Muslim is because of the friends that I made at UH when I first came here last year. And so
Mm.
yeah, I mean it goes like you've heard the saying like friends can make or break you, right? And so it's almost imperative to find friends that make you and to keep them around you and to keep them close. Um, Especially as Muslims with regards to our deen. You know,
Yeah. Where do you think, how do you think a person should go about cultivating good friends? Where do you find them? What do you do? How do you recognize them?
how do you recognize good friends? Well, I think the first step is to know what a good friend is, right? So like if you have a worldview, like for example, like as Muslims, we'd say a good friend is someone who reminds you of Allah, who tries to keep you on the deen, who encourages you to do good things and will advise you away from bad things too. So that's the standard I would use as a Muslim. And I think finding friends, sorry, my cat's harassing me right now, but finding good friends is a little difficult because you never know where you can find them sometimes. Like you can find good friends in the best places and you can find bad friends in the you can find good friends in the worst places and you can find bad friends in the best places. So it's just kind of almost a trial and error thing. Like you find good people and you stick to them.
Yeah. This is reminding me of something that one of my friends, Dawood, told me about,
Mhm.
where he was saying that some people are just placed in your life for a season, period of time.
Mhm.
And it's just like your interactions with them in that period of time are important to your story because it has whatever impact or influence it has on you in that time. And that could carry on, the effects of that later on, but those people might not necessarily carry on with you. And it's a very good point. I needed that reminder. Something I feel like everybody knows more or less, but I needed that reminder. And it's also interesting looking at it from like say the lens of like a podcast because there's so many people that have been on here that we're such good friends and I don't talk to them anymore. It's not like there's any bad blood, but it's just I don't really talk to them anymore. But
Mm.
like they're still on the podcast, and you can look back at that and be like, wow, that's a glimpse of what that friendship was like once upon a time.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting that you move on, those people move on, but that effect, whatever it had on the both of you, it remains.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting to look back and kind of almost map out like the friendships you've had in life and how they've kind of changed the way you see things or the way you kind of like their direction in life, you know?
Yeah. How do you think a person could become a good friend themselves?
I think to be a good friend to other people, you have to be a good friend to yourself first. And that's something I've come to learn the kind of the hard way. Like you to be able to help others, you really need to be certain about like that you're helping yourself. So like, you take care of yourself, you make sure that um you're heading where you want to go. And I think you'll naturally influence other people that way. Like if you strive to be a better person yourself, you will kind of have an effect on other people and you'll motivate them to be better people themselves too. And it's
Mhm.
not it's a passive thing, right? It's not like an active decision where you want to be like, hey, I want to influence so and so to do so and so. Like I just want to improve myself in this aspect, and maybe by doing that, then it'll rub off on other people and they'll improve in that aspect as well.
Yeah, what this is making me think of, especially when you say rub off, is what I really like about you. I admire this is that anytime I meet you, you are like the most smiling guy there. Like you literally, they feel like a bright smile. Like you literally have that. And actually, I remember I wrote about this one time. I was like, dude, like I went into that group and this guy had like the brightest smile. And I wanted to mention this because it's one of those things that rubs off. It's like
Mm.
even if I'm not feeling on par, it's like, wow, this guy's on par. So I need to be on par like him. I need to be like in a
Uh-huh.
positive state like that. That even if I'm having a terrible day, I can still treat other people with such kindness, like, whoa, where did that come from? Type of a thing. So I'm curious, where does that come from you? How are you always so like, brotherly and kind to the people that you encounter?
Do you know Momin?
Yeah,
I got that from
I
him.
do. Is that
He
right?
was one of the first people I met when I came to UH, like with the rest of the MSA. And he was like he was a junior when I was there, or I think he was in his third to last semester because he's graduating this semester. And like I was like when I came down to the basement, or I think it was I came first to the basement or the GBM, but he came up to me and he like introduced himself and he was like he just had this like kind of like bubbly energy about him, and that had a profound effect on me. And so whenever I would see him like just come out of the basement and see him, he'd be like super excited to see me and he'd like run over and like dap me up or give me a hug or something. And it's a lot of the brothers like that. Like it's just the moment sticks out the most because he's had like the biggest effect on me, I'd say. And that's definitely where I get that from because it's such an uplifting feeling, right? Like seeing someone kind of come to you with this excitement, like they really want to see you, like seeing them major day, and it's a great feeling, and it's something that I've adopted because of that. Like I
Wow.
want that. I want other people to experience the feeling that I experienced.
Yeah, that's really cool that you mentioned that because it's like a contagious thing. And
It is.
it's really
Yeah.
cool that you mentioned that because it's like just him being that positive person had this effect on you and you have it on all these other people. And it's like, whoa,
Mm.
and somebody probably had that effect on him,
Yeah.
and before that too. So it's like, it's such a cool thing that extends. So when people say, the positivity, it, it I'm not sure like the words to use, but this idea that the effect is manifold. Like you don't know how far it goes. Just this
Yeah.
bright light that shines through all these different people.
It's like a kind of a butterfly effect almost, if you want to look at it that way. It's kind of
Yeah.
rough, but just like you brighten someone's day. Let's say you brighten five people's days, right? And then they go brighten five people's days. Each of them goes and brightens another five people's day, and then like it's like it kind of spreads out, and everybody's day's better. That's the way I kind of see it.
Yeah. It's true. It's very true. And it's not always easy to be that way. At least I would say from my experience. Is it like that for you too? Like it's not always easy to be that sort of bubbly, so to speak.
It's rough. Like obviously we all struggle, right? Like we all have rough periods in our life. Um, and so it can be difficult to kind of put on this kind of, well, it's, I wouldn't say put on an act, right? Because I think it should come from like a natural place. Like you shouldn't really force it, but it can be difficult sometimes to be kind of like, to be kind of, to be who you usually are, especially if you're going through like a rough time. But I think, like, as you mentioned earlier, like friends, I think friends help with that. Like, even if you're going through like a rough day or you've had a, like you bomb a test or something and you just come down and you see your friends and then you kind of like put all that stuff on the side and then you're reminded of like how your friends make you feel and then it kind of it brings you back up to where you usually are. That's the way it is for me, at least. Like even if I'm going through like a rough kind of patch, just like knowing that I have people around me that are there for me when I'm in good times and I'm in bad times. It reminds me of the good times more, and it makes me want to kind of live up to that bubbly personality that you know me for.
Yeah,
Yeah, that makes
that's
sense.
cool, man. I like this. Yeah. I just wanted to mention one of the funniest jokes that you've told me. Another really funny joke you told me.
Yeah,
I was wearing an outfit and then I ran into you
yeah,
and you're like, nice outfit, man. Mashallah. It's very 2006, but in a good way. That's
yeah.
really funny too, man. You've got your moments of comedy. Where do those moments of comedy come from?
Yeah, I mean, I'm Egyptian, right? And humor is a huge part of our
The
culture.
funniest Arabs, eh? Egyptians.
Yeah, yeah. We have an expression like whenever you say someone's funny, you say demu khafif. Like his literally his blood is light, right? Like I think a lot of the times we carry our worries around with us, right? And they weigh us down. But humor is a big way to kind of lighten those burdens, right? Like you just kind of you crack a joke and everything kind of lightens up a little bit. And it's so important for me. Like I've always like I haven't been a funny guy all my entire life. This is a bit of a later development, but I just find it to be such a good outlet, just in general. And obviously, like a part of like uplifting, like we mentioned earlier, like uplifting other people. Like humor is a great way to do that. Like just making people laugh. It's a good feeling. Like laughter is probably one of the best feelings we can experience as human beings. There's kind of a moment of just uncontrollable like joy coming out of us, you know?
Yeah. I'm thinking about that statement that you said, his blood is light.
Yeah,
That's an interesting statement. What do you think that means?
light blood.
Yeah, like when they give that compliment about, someone being funny, his blood is light.
Yeah, like this. It's similar to like in English, like you say like a lighthearted joke, right? So I
Hmm.
think like kind of if you imagine like what blood is, right? Like it's what circulates around our body. And so what you carry in your blood is kind of like in a metaphorical way, kind of what you express throughout like your entire body. Like if you have a lot weighing down on you, like you'd have like for example, you'd say you had heavy blood, right? So then your feet are dragging, your head's kind of to the ground and you just kind of have like an upset kind of uh demeanor, if that makes sense. But like light blood would be the opposite, right? Like everything's kind of light, you're happy, you're kind of you're skipping as you walk, you know what I mean? Like it's just kind of like does that make sense the way I'm explaining it? Can't
It
really find the
does,
word.
yeah. Yeah. I get it. It's like Holly Jolly in a way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. What else has been on your mind?
Lately, it's just low-key just exams. Like it's kind of it's exam week, so I've been kind of locked in on that.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. Not much to be honest. I don't think about much more than what I have to do. I guess
That's
direct.
actually that's a really good statement. I don't think much more about whatever you just said right now.
Mhm.
You don't think about things other than what you have to do. That's pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's actually a really good point. I know it's like a simple statement, but it's a really good point. Just focus on what you have to do.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm trying to expand this out a little bit, but like with regards to like purpose, you know, like we kind of we tend to like lock in, right? Like we have like this to do, so I'll put all my effort into this. Oh, I have something else to do. Okay, I'll do that. And I don't know. I feel like there's something to be said about that. Do you see what I'm kind of where I'm kind of going with this?
A little bit. Expand. Say it again. What you just said right now.
Like it's just like life kind of seems like completing tasks, you know? Like it's you do this task, you know, and then you have the next task and you do that, and then something comes up later and you do that. I don't know how to expand on this, but I think I'm just getting at like this idea of, you know, we we kind of live life day to day in a sense, and we devote like all our time and attention and thoughts to what we have to do on a certain day, and then kind of rinse and repeat, you know?
Yeah. What this is making me think of is prior to the pandemic, I used to make lists of things that I had to do, and then I'd cross them off, you know? And it's
Mhm.
very helpful,
Mhm.
way of doing things. But when the pandemic came, and then, post-pandemic, I kind of just stopped doing that because in a way it felt like what you were talking about. Like, oh, I just have to, it's like checking things off
Yeah,
for the day. It felt almost unnatural. I mean, it can be a helpful thing when you have things to do, but it just kind of felt like, wow, I don't know, it just felt weird. Tasks, it felt weird.
yeah, yeah. That's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah. It's definitely an interesting thing.
Mhm, for sure.
Do you believe in awkward moments?
Yes, I experience them on the regular. Although I think a lot of it's in our heads, you know? Like I've always like had this idea of trying to appreciate silence. Actually, I'll talk about this because I've been thinking about this recently. Just like I think silence is almost taboo, right? Like it's almost it's weird. It's perceived as weird to kind of sit with someone and just kind of not say anything and then just kind of like even look at each other and just kind of chill out, you know? Like that's a weird thing to think about. But I think maybe there's something to be said about how we try to fill in all the gaps in our lives with talking or doing something. But I think it can be good sometimes to just kind of chill and just enjoy the silence, you know? Because
Yeah.
like especially in our lives, like in the modern world, like silence is almost a commodity, right? Like there's always something to be done or to be seen or to be heard or to be experienced. But silence, like I mean, that's why like as Muslims we pray, right? Like we a lot of our like three of our prayers are done, two of our prayers are done in silence. And it's to kind of like the wisdom behind praying Dhuhr and Asr in silence is that you're interrupting the hustle and bustle of the day with like a few silent moments with God, right? And so I think if we can expand on that a little bit, like just kind of learn to appreciate silence because it's kind of hard to come by nowadays.
Yeah. Silence is something I've thought about a lot for sure.
Mm,
And it's interesting that you say, taboo. I remember I watched Pulp Fiction when I was like 17, I think, or 18. And there's this scene where John Travolta and Uma Thurman, they're in a car, they're driving. And I don't remember the exact things that were said, but it was about this topic, where it's like, there's like, it's okay to be silent between two people.
mm,
It's not the end of the world. It's not an awkward moment. It has
mm,
its purpose. And I really like how you use that word commodity because it's a very interesting word to just look at by itself. But
mm,
silence in a hustle and bustling world, and how you said Zohar and Asr are praying in silence. It's it's a very good point. Yeah, that you get to kind of, I guess, reflect a little.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I mean, we're having a live example of that right now.
that's a way of putting it. Yeah, we are.
Mm.
What does Khattab mean? Your last name?
Khattab, it literally means scribe, like
Huh.
someone who writes.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Interesting. I didn't know that, but I guess it makes sense. Kitab book. Khattab.
Yeah, it's
Interesting.
similar in that regard. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm. You want to talk about names a little bit? Because I think
let's do
names
it.
are an interesting thing, right? Like I think this is a big concept in Islam too. Like your name kind of defines who you are in a sense. Like if you have a good name or like a name that evokes a good quality, you'll almost try to fit that quality, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that is a
Have you
good
thought?
point, actually. Yeah, come to think of it, I was just saying you have such a bright smile, but now that it makes sense in a way. Noor, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, it's a good point, man. I believe in that. I believe that names do have like an impact on who you are and what you do. And yeah.
Mhm.
Did you want to say something about it?
No, I was just kind of thinking about it, you know. What do you know what your name means? Do you know what Farid means?
Fareed? Yeah, it means unique.
Unique. SubhanAllah. Yeah, I couldn't imagine a more fitting name for you, to be honest. Very unique. In a good way, I promise.
Yeah, yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah. It's a cool name. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, Fareed.
Mhm. Unique. How do you feel about uniqueness? Like what does it mean to you to be unique?
I guess like the first sort of thought that comes in my mind is not really being like a mindless sheep in a way.
Mm,
You know, like I think what happens when people become the same is that they kind of become these like have you ever seen that movie Soul,
I haven't
the
seen it.
Disney one? There's this interesting scene where it's like these people, there's like this realm where people on Earth, they get so obsessed about whatever they're doing that they become like this mindless monster in a way. And I'm just thinking of that when I say mindless sheep because people just kind of get into a herd and they might be doing different things, but they're still like mindless in it. You know, like
Hmm,
it's like a tunnel vision that takes them into a pit, something like that.
I
So
see.
I guess what I'm trying to say is like the sameness. Like I guess someone who's unique isn't like a part of that sameness.
Mm, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. Do you have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think from an Islamic perspective, right? We're as Muslims, we're united with one purpose, right? But we should still strive to be different in our own regards. You know, like we all have, like we have different personalities and different qualities, right? Like you have some people who are more kind of soft-hearted and kind of like softer. Like if you look at like the seerah, you have like Uthman radiallahu anhu. He was like a very soft and kind of bashful person. And then you have other characters like Umar bin Farooq radiallahu anhu. He was like a very strong, very masculine, very upstanding kind of person. And then you have Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, who's a very kind-hearted and also like a soft man. And all of these are the greatest men that we have, like the most eminent men of our ummah. And it just kind of goes to show that we're all different, but we're all necessary, right? Like we all have different qualities that are all equally important to bring to the table, in that we can all benefit each other. We can all seek benefits from our differences in that regard.
Yes. Yes, I really like this. You said different but necessary. What is the necessary?
Yeah. The necessary is both, I think, in a both like in a, like an actual physical sense, like necessary. Like you need the strong people to do strong people things, right? Like you need the strong men on the front lines, and you need like the smart men. You need the smart men in the labs, right? To be developing cool things, and then you need the very kind people. You need them in hospitals, and you need them, in shelters and whatnot. And I think also like spiritually it matters too. Right? Like you need the kind of the quieter, reflective people, right? To kind of guide you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a really good point. It is. Do you ever feel like um a particular kind of different is championed over other difference?
I don't know.
Hmm.
Can you give an example of that?
Yeah, like what I was saying was like, do you think like they're like everybody's different, right? But oh, if you're in this group of different, then you're perceived like better in society as opposed to this other group of different.
Mhm.
Do you ever
Yeah,
get
I
that
think
feeling?
in terms of I don't know about get that feeling, but I do understand, like especially from like a societal perspective, like we have this almost kind of growing like different means like like it's almost like, how do I phrase this? like the people who make the like the few people who make the most money, or the few people who kind of have the biggest presence in the world are the people that like are they're different, and we should strive to be like. It's kind of ironic, right? Like they're different from us, but we should strive to be like them.
Yeah.
We should all strive to be rich and powerful and whatnot, to be like these people who are rich and powerful and whatnot. So I guess in that regard, it's not the best comparison, but that's in that regard, that's what I would have to say about that.
Yeah, I see the direction you're taking that in. Yeah. Yeah. That's something I think about, you know. My
Hmm.
personal experience, I felt like there's, you know, a certain kind of person, and if you can be that kind of person, then great. Everybody loves you, so to speak. But if
Hmm.
you're not that kind of person, then yeah, like you can take a seat kind of a thing.
Yeah, I completely agree.
As I've seen, you know. And people might not admit that, like, no, we don't believe that, bro. We love the differences. And some
Mm.
of them, you know, I'm sure many of them they do, but there's also some of them where it's like, nah, man, you know, like you got to be this way or you're not accepted, kind of a thing.
I agree with you.
Yeah, it's. I'm glad you brought that up. It's a good point, man, for sure. And actually, I think if I were to think about like people, they really pamper the definition of friend, right? Like I've met people, they get like really deep with the definition. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that, but it's just like I don't I don't go so deep with the definition. But if there is an attribute that I would give to like a real true friend, a good friend, it's someone who doesn't really judge you like that. You know, where it's like you can just be who you are, different in whatever way.
Right.
And they'll just still be like, yeah, that's my friend. You know, I don't
100%.
really,
I completely agree with you on that. Yeah.
yeah,
I think, yeah, I guess this kind of ties it all back together, right? Like we were talking about what defines a true friend, like how to be a good friend. And I think if you feel like you have to change who you are or change something about yourself to kind of fit or to kind of please another friend, then that person really isn't your friend, right?
yeah,
Like you should, like you yourself should be friends with that person, not like this kind of person that you make yourself out to be, right?
yeah. It's very true, man. I heard a saying one time, those who matter don't mind, those who mind don't matter. And it's kind of like that
Yeah,
in a way. Yeah.
yeah,
Which, by the way, not is not to say that like good friends can't judge you. You know, like there's definitely moments where they'll be like, hey, I don't think that's right, or I do think this is right. But it's more of the sense of like they just kind of accept integral parts of you. When you show them your colors, they're not trying to paint over them, kind of a thing.
yeah. That's a beautiful quote. You should write that one down.
That one is not mine.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay,
So I don't
okay.
know whose it is. I just read it somewhere.
I see. That's beautiful though.
Yeah, when I read that one, it hit me hard too.
Hmm.
Yeah. How old are you?
How old am I? I'm 19.
Yeah, actually, I was your age, I think, when I heard that one. Yeah,
Hmm.
19. Yeah. When you show them your colors, they don't try to paint over you.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's deep.
Well, Noor, I'm curious, bro. Do you have any closing thoughts? Anything you
Closing
felt like you
thoughts.
wanted to say but you didn't get a chance to, or something on your mind that you wanted to express?
Hmm. I don't think so. I think we've talked. Like I'm happy with our discussion. Like we kind of hit all the topics that I was looking forward to talking about. So I mean, I'm happy with that.
That's cool, man. Yeah, there's definitely things that were said here that I think were things to ponder on and reflect on.
Hmm.
I did have one closing thought, which was I was watching the Back to the Future movies,
Hmm.
and you know they're cool films, but I was just thinking about another thing that I had read somewhere else, which is people are so fixated on, man, if only I could go back into the past and like change this one little thing, and then everything would be different for me now. But rarely do they think about, well, what if I changed one little thing right now, and then it could have a huge impact on my future. And so, you know, tying that with friendships or with differences or whatever,
Hmm.
I think that's another good point, you know? Because I mentioned at the beginning, like, there's some friendships where it's like they're not dead, but they're not alive either, almost. They're kind of.
Mhm.
in this vague limbo, but it's like maybe that could change type of a thing. Maybe
Right.
there's hope, you know. We don't have to go
Mhm.
back to the past or to the future. We could just do something with it now, type of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Of
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for being here, Nour. I really appreciate
course.
this.
Yeah. Thank you so much for
Cool.
having me. This was a wonderful discussion. I'm really happy with the way this went.
Yeah. 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 Well, I suppose until next time, eh? Inshallah.
Inshallah. Salam habibi. Wait, do you want to see my cat
Salam
real quick?
salam. Oh yeah, let's see it. Let's see
Let
the
me bring
cat.
her on the phone. This is Josie.
Oh, what is your cat's name?
Her name is Josie.
Josie. It's a really
Yeah.
nice cat, mashallah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
like
She's
that.
my baby.
Wow. Yeah, it's got like leopard skin almost, huh?
Yeah. She's a little lion. She's like the family exterminator,
The
basically.
family exterminator.
She hunts all the roaches and stuff. Saves us some money on
Wow.
rate.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that little cameo there.
I had to bring her in. She was sleeping next to me the whole time. Decided to
Wow.
bring her in as a kind of a guest star.
That's cool. I love that. I love that. Nice.